Hey, welcome to my channel. Game one happened, and I was afraid what happened was happening basically in the first three quarters, essentially, where the Knicks were a little rusty. You could tell. They were sloppy. They were pressing. At least they were pressing, but they were pressing too hard to the point of like they're missing shots. First half, they were giving up a lot of turnovers as well, too, quite honestly, and they weren't getting in as many of the offensive rebounds that they should have. But that's probably Wemby Yama thing, basically, more than anything else. The other factor was he was closing the lanes. It was hard. You could tell a lot of the players like OG Ananobi as well as Brunson, they were altering their shots, weren't driving as much per se because of Wemby Yama. But quite honestly, it's pretty impressive what happened because like I said basically the way the Knicks have to win this series and each of the games is Brunson, Towns, OG, and what's his name, Bridges will all have to basically score at least 20 points. That wasn't the case in this situation. Brunson, of course, did score 30 points. Mr. Superstar came clutch in the fourth quarter, of course. It was a surprise, the first half and third quarter. I was like really worried because, like, I mean, let's be honest, he had uh basically 3-point range, 2 out of 9 shots. Basically, his field goal range, 12 out of 31. But fortunately, he did come back in the fourth quarter, of course, and then Carl Anthony Towns stepped up a little bit as well. To quite on, the problem is he was getting to foul troubles here and there, but fortunately he was able to rectify it, and he made Wemby basically work for those baskets. Let's be honest, he did make him work. I mean, the fact is Karl Anthony Towns had 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists at that point, and like he was 7 out of 15 as well as, 3 points. Of course, 3-point range he was over 2, but at least he was still scoring and getting those rebounds and making. I mean, the point differential for him basically was plus 14, whereas, Jalen Brunson was a plus 6. The one thing, though, is the sleeper was we thought it was going to be OG or Mikal Bridges, but it turns out it was Josh Hart. Like what I hate to say is what the heart of the team, pun intended, in this situation where he was working, he was working for it basically and getting 15 rebounds. I mean, I think he was the leading rebound of the entire game basically from all the players, both Knicks and Spurs, and 3 points of course, but it's not that bad. 6 assists, which is pretty impressive itself, and like 5 for 9 with and 3 out of 6 from 3-point range. Um, in that situation, I mean, sorry, not 3 out of 36. That was Shamit, but you just over 3 field goals, 1 out of 5, basically, of course. But free throws was that, but he had a plus 22 basically at that point, and of course the bench came through at that point as well. To quite honestly, Shamit coming clutch at that point. Quite honestly, Shamit and Miles McBride, sorry, Deuce basically worked, but he didn't get it to what we needed to. Shamit basically picked up where essentially Bridges was falling short. Bridges was giving a lot of turnovers as well too, but quite honestly, Bridges, 3 out of 6. I mean, field goal range. I mean, quite honestly, it was a little surprising. 3 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, he had a plus 11, but at the same time, that was more of his defensive aspects more than anything else. But he could have probably scored a little bit more as well too. OG Ananobi in the beginning as well too. He had problems. He started in the first quarter, first half basically, and he started coming through in the second half basically, more so in the fourth quarter at least, when he started getting hot at that point. Shaman, I think basically kind of beside Brunson, I think Shaman was one that was helping him stay in the game, considering that he was hot. I mean, there was times where like Deuce McBride should have taken the three, but he knew who had the hotter hand and he gave it to Shaman, and basically Shaman was scoring. Um, from the aspect of Mitch Robinson, 6 rebounds, not bad, but he was also making Wembanyama work a little bit as well too. But he wasn't in there as much as he should. I thought they should have had him in there. Probably keeping. I mean, there could have been the case of the hack a Shack type of thing, basically type of aspect. But I think in this situation, Mitch Robinson keeping him in there, he might have. I don't want to say contained Wemby, but more so created more foul trouble for Wemby at that point. Quite honestly, because he was able to block. I mean, you could see what both Cat and Wemby were doing. I mean, Cat and Mitch were doing to Wemby. Basically, they were boxing him out, which was pretty impressive. I was kind of surprised about that. The one thing that was like on the Spurs side, I was afraid though. This is what my biggest fear was. Is like Wembyama, of course, and Castle basically. Stephon Castle scoring 17 points and 8 rebounds. I mean, of course he was a -9, but he could have gotten better. Wembanyama, of course, having 26 points and 12 rebounds with 2 assists, 2 out of 9 from 3-point range. We were fortunate in that situation. Of course, 6 out of 20 from the field goals. The one thing though that kind of threw me off was Champagne and as well as Harper. Those two, they were like working it, man. These became like, if the Spurs would have won this game, it would have been these two. These two would have been the reason why the Spurs would have won, basically. Because the fact is, like, the Knicks would let him go, and like they were driving through, like they almost pretty much had everything going in place for them, to the point where, like, I'm surprised that they didn't use DeAndre Fox more, like use the pick and roll with DeAndre Fox, because like the fact that they were using the pick and roll against the Spurs with Cat and Brunson, it worked out from that perspective as well as Hart. I mean, surprised they didn't do Fox and Wemby didn't do pick and roll type of situation, or from that aspect. It could have worked from that, but we're fortunate. I'm happy for that. Um, but reality is like, I think we got lucky in this situation. The other aspect is like, I think the fact that the Knicks locked down, their defense tightened up a little bit in the third quarter, and specifically in the fourth quarter, it tightened down considerably to the point like they had no turnovers. Definitely helped in the long term at that point as well too. That definitely helped out considerably, having no turnovers. I think because of their defense and not giving up those turnovers, that helped them immensely. Um, Making them a little bit more tougher towards the late end of it. But we were fortunate in that situation. I think this it might have been the experience of the Spurs at that point, honestly, as well too. So I think we got lucky from that aspect. Um, I don't know about the situation of like what to expect in game two, but let's be honest. I mean, Wemby's probably going to get much more touches and be more closer to the rim, because quite honestly, you could see that he had his way with Cat and Mitch when he was inside the rim, in the paint. Basically, he was able to like extend out and slam out that one. He was always shooting those outside jump shots. He probably should have gone in and basically and had Cat and basically Mitch work. They made him work, but he could have also created foul trouble, which we saw with Cat. Created those foul troubles from them. He probably could have worked it off. I think also the other aspect is Fox. I mean, 7 points was not enough, but reality is like, and of course with those three turnovers as well, two Hart as well as two Bright. I think Fox, if he changes himself and like basically they do a pick and roll at that point as well too with him, but also get him more involved in the game, I think they have a legitimate shot at that point. Um, I think the thing is for the Knicks though, for game two, what they got to do is they got to keep it physical. That's what they got to do. They got to keep it physical, protect the ball as much as possible, because the reality is like they were sloppy in the first half to the point where like they were giving those terms. And also the other aspect is they've got to get those offensive rebounds. We were lucky that Hart was able to get most of them as well as Cat, but I think they got to get more offensive rebounds at that point as well too, because those shots weren't going in. If they get those offensive rebounds, they had that second or third shot options, that would have been great. Um, the only question is how you make Wemby work for it and make him more inefficient. If he's in the paint and gets closer to the rim, it's going to be much difficult for the Knicks at that point. But the reality is, if you let him try to beat you and contain the rest of the team, then I think you should have the Knicks should be okay at that point. And the other aspect is Mikal Bridges has to step up. He has to step up in this game, in game two. He has to step up. OG, I think he started coming as of late. I think that was more of jitters. He's been in the finals before, so I think this is a case where like I don't know, maybe he had to adjust himself or whatever it is. But reality is um, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from there. I mean, I know we'll see the Spurs adjust and try to contain Brunson more. They'll probably put Castle on him more, or maybe the fact is there were some mismatches, so that's why Brunson was able to overtake it. And the fact is they were able to get when Wemby was on the bench, the Knicks couldn't capitalize completely. They did, and somewhat towards the end of the game, but in the beginning of the series, they didn't. When the Knicks had that run, Wemby sat down, and then apparently they should have went further up, but they let the Spurs come back, and that was like a little surprising from there. Game two is going to definitely be more tight and more physical early, and I think possibly what we saw happened, which the Knicks cannot stop, was the speed, the pace. The faster they were, Champagne and as well as Harper, because they were so fast in that situation that they were able to, have their way with the Knicks. And I think if they keep up with that and the Knicks can't slow the game down, they're gonna have problems. The other factor is like, the turnovers play a big factor at that point too. The Knicks can contain the ball and protect the ball a little bit more, and not give out those easy turnovers, and also have those offensive rebounds as well too. I mean, those secondary offensive rebounds as well too. It should they have a legitimate shot of sweeping basically at this point, honestly. Well, only time will tell. DeAndre Fox, you could tell he was a little injured as well too. Like, let's be honest, I think he didn't he wasn't 100% because could see that he wasn't driving to the basket as much. And there were times where like he had those fast breaks and he should have beat out Hart and even OG at that point a couple of times and Shaman for sure, as well as Deuce. But reality is he didn't, and like that was a little surprise. I mean, honestly, he should have had it. So I think he's still kind of injured, and I'm all for it. I mean, like, yeah, go for it. Let him be injured. Like, if this slows him down to the point where like the Knicks don't have to worry about him, that's great because you saw what happened with speed. Champagne and Harper being that fast, the Knicks were not able to contain him as much. Fortunately, the Knicks were able to slow it down and basically slow down the pace as much and be more physical with those guys that they were able to do this. But I'm liking what I'm seeing, and I thought the game would probably be the Knicks would probably win in 6. It's possible they might win in 5, and maybe even a sweep, depending what happens in game 2. If they win game 2, chances are they get a sweep. But I have the feeling they might win in 5 games, and if they do win in 5, I'm hoping it happens in San Antonio. Why? Because I want it to be reversed. The way the Spurs beat the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, I want the Knicks to win and beat the Spurs in San Antonio because, well, two things. One, if the Knicks win here in New York, it's going to be pandemonium. Let's be honest. Like forget it. Like if you're in New York, you're staying indoors because like for those that are not basketball fans, you're staying indoors because like you don't want to go out there because who knows what's going to happen at that point, especially if the Knicks win. Um, and the parade itself, who knows what's going to happen there. But reality is, I'm getting ahead of myself. Unfortunately, I'm really getting ahead of myself. But I think what it comes down to is this: is basically the Knicks need to be physical, make Wemby work again, protect the ball a little bit, reduce the amount of turnovers, and get those offensive rebounds. If they do all that, and if Mikal Bridges and OG start scoring 20 points as well too, I think the Knicks have a legitimate shot of sweeping or even winning in 5. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think of my analysis? I mean, if I'm wrong, you're welcome to share it. If you think my analysis of them winning in 5, maybe in sweeping, is wrong, let me know too. You're welcome to leave it in the comment section. With that, I'll leave it at that. And of course, before I say anything else, I was like, "Go New York, go New York, go!" With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.